Ben Shapiro has been losing a lot of followers lately, and honestly, it's not that hard to see why. The guy does not read the room. Every single time he opens his mouth, he's either blaming young people for being irresponsible or attacking them for not buying into his same recycled talking points from 2009. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was under fire for criticizing young people for wanting to live where they were born.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
Apparently, wanting to stay close to your family, your culture, and your roots is now a moral failure in Ben Shapiro's world. Obviously, young Americans were furious at him for saying something that offensive. Instead of going after the system that made the cost of living completely unlivable, he went after the people who are stuck inside it. That is such an out-of-touch take, it's almost impressive. Even Tucker Carlson looked surprised by it.
Does he really think that? It's hard to know where to start with that clip. I think that's been on the internet and people are experiencing gut-level revulsion when they see it, and they really should. And there's so many ways to approach that. There's so many things wrong with those statements. So childish, those statements, so lacking an understanding of people or any connection really to the country at all. But really what you see underneath all of that is contempt for the people who live here. You have no right to live in the town where you were born just because your parents are buried there. Your ancestors built the town? Who do you think you are? Imagine feeling that way about someone in your own country. Imagine having that level of contempt for a fellow American. You don't even know anything about the person. It's young people. They're not entitled to live where they want. They'll live where BlackRock tells them they can live. It's like, whoa. If you had a thought like that, I've had some ugly thoughts. I just admitted having some ugly thoughts. Boy, I would try and push it back and not express it. Ben says it without any embarrassment because he means it. That's exactly right, because he means it. Whew.
Instead of even pretending to apologize, he came back out and doubled down like, every young person struggles. It's normal. You're supposed to suffer, so stop crying.
More than 40% of 18 to 29-year-olds surveyed last month said they are struggling or just getting by. 1/4 believe they'll be worse off financially than their parents. Now, again, to be fair, a lot of people struggle when they're 18 to 29 years old. Now, I was a Harvard Law School graduate, and I remember essentially living paycheck to paycheck with my wife for at least several years early on in our marriage. I remember there was a point where we were thinking of taking out a second credit card in order to pay off the first credit card. We were I think, down to $2,000 in our savings at one point. So it's kind of normal to struggle when you're 24, 25, 26 years old. The question is the directionality. Do you feel like you're going to get out of it? Well, it's not just that young people feel like they are struggling. They are concerned about what comes next. So there's widespread concern over inflation. Huge number of people believe that the nation is headed into the wrong track. 4% of Democrats, of course, say the nation is headed in the right track. They're very upset with President Trump. 33% of Republicans say that the nation is headed on the right track. 27% wrong track. 39% unsure. So those aren't stellar numbers even among Republicans.
He tried to make it about himself and said he lived paycheck to paycheck in college. And honestly, that's straight up lie. Ben Shapiro did not grow up poor. His family was already well off. He grew up in a rich area in Los Angeles. His mom was a TV executive. His dad worked as a producer and composer in Hollywood. This was not a struggling household. He went to private schools. He skipped grades. He had support and connections very early on. While most college students are working random jobs just to survive, Ben was already getting paid to write political columns as a teenager. He had a national platform before most people even finish high school. So when he says paycheck to paycheck, what he really means is he still had a safety net. If something went wrong, his family had money. He was not at risk of being homeless. He wasn't choosing between rent and food. And of course, he's still not done going after young people. He just keeps going. Now he's saying, yeah, the unemployment rate is bad, but it's bad for everyone, so stop crying.
But to pretend that unemployment rates are just gigantic among young people, particularly college graduates, would be to ignore the actual statistics. The unemployment rate for new law school graduates, for example, like the more educated you are, the better chance that you're about to get a pretty good paying job. That seems to be the pattern that has resulted in some pretty terrible college policy in which we seem to believe that if we artificially inflate the number of people who go to college, then we will also artificially inflate their career prospects, which of course is really, really silly. It turns out that when you look at the bell curve of earnings, that bell curve remains, even if you take the entire bell curve and shift it up by 2 years in terms of years of education obtained. Living in Austin, Texas is not the same thing as living in New York. That is just really true. It is basically true.
He makes it sound like young people are just sitting around begging for handouts and being lazy all day. That's not the problem at all. The real issue is simple. If someone is working a normal, full-time job in a city, they should be able to afford a normal life in that city. Basic rent, basic food, basic bills. That shouldn't be some luxury dream. If you can work 40 hours a week and still can't survive, that's not personal failure. That's a broken system. Because at that point, you're working nonstop just to stay barely afloat, while corporations make billions of dollars off your labor. And if you question that, suddenly you're labeled a socialist. And everything you say gets dismissed instantly. And this is exactly why the recent mayor of New York won the election. He didn't talk like a millionaire on a podcast. He talked about what regular people are actually worried about, not what career commentators and rich media figures think people should care about.
So the point I made is if you're a young person, if you're 20 years old, 21 years old, and you're struggling to afford a place in New York City, and you can find a comparable job in Minnesota, you might want to think about moving. Because just for your own betterment of life, it might be worthwhile to consider not being in New York. And this notion that you are owed the same level of affordability in New York as you are in Des Moines, Iowa, or Minnesota or something, that's silly. That is not how reality works. I also wish for a pony that craps gold, but that's not actually how reality. New York will never be as affordable as St. Petersburg, Florida. It's just not going to happen. And pretending that it is, well, I mean, that's a bad way to do life. And it is true that the myth that young people have been sold that they never need to move at any point, especially when they are young, before they have kids, when they are first getting out in the world. That's had a real impact in terms of public policy and in terms of pricing. And all of these factors have to be taken into account when we determine why things are unaffordable. Because the question is why things are unaffordable, not whether it is moral for things to be unaffordable or not unaffordable.
And that's why people are not watching him anymore. You can literally see it in the numbers. People who used to watch him every day are drifting away and going to other commentators instead. Tucker Carlson pulls huge audiences on his own now. And Nick Fuentes is getting millions of views recently on different platforms. Meanwhile, the Daily Wire is shrinking, and instead of asking, why are people leaving, they go straight to, oh, those views are bots. Those aren't real people.
It's all fake. So the New York Post has this world news exclusive based on a new report that has just come out, supposedly, that says that Fuentes' following, his apparent popularity, is an illusion. The headline is, Fuentes may be racist, but he relies on Nigeria and India to fuel his popularity online. It says the white supremacist Nick Fuentes doesn't seem to mind benefiting from bot farms in Pakistan, India, and Nigeria promoting his content, the Post has learned. This is based on a report, a study, supposedly, from the Network Contagion Research Institute, which is a nonprofit that purports to study extremism on the internet. Okay. You have some people on one side saying, Fuentes is entirely organic. It's a cri de coeur from the voice of the people. He's the voice of his generation, and it's all totally organic. Then you have some people on the other side saying, no, the Fuentes phenomenon, it's completely fake. It's astroturfed. None of it is real. These are not the droids you're looking for. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's just forget about it. The thing you think you're seeing is not true. Don't believe your lying eyes. I guess, as is often the case, on these sorts of issues, I have the third and probably least popular view. The people who say that this phenomenon is it's all bots, it's all just foreign ops, it's all just engagement farming. That is pure cope, man. That is head in the sand copium to make people feel better. That is not true. Likewise, the people who are saying that there's no foreign interference whatsoever, I mean, I think that's totally naive and ridiculous and contrary to everything we've seen from our adversaries in history.
We all know it's not bots. It's real people turning away from these fake commentators who always think the public is too dumb to notice the lies and the contradictions. So yeah, if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more.